Class is in session. Hitting the Books Bowl preview edition of Hitting the Books right here on Pub Sports Radio. Ian Cameron, Conor Mack with you. Part one of our two-part bowl preview shows here on Hitting the Books. We have arrived at bowl season. It's hard to believe the regular season went by that fast, but it is bowl season, and man, it is a beast to try to keep up with everything. Who's playing, who's in the transfer portal. There's a lot that we are going to at least do the absolute best that we can with the information that we have at this moment with all these games as to who's playing and the situations that are unfolding with these games. So definitely interested to see how this bowl season plays out, because the transfer portal has kind of affected things like never before. So with that in mind, part one, we are going to start with our first game taking place in bowl season, and it comes your way Saturday, December 16th, the Myrtle Beach Bowl taking place. It is Georgia Southern taking on Ohio. Georgia Southern, 3.5-point favorites in this game. 49 is the total. I think the main thing to point out with this bowl game here is the money that's come in on Georgia Southern, because Ohio opened a 1.5-point favorite, 3.5 now Georgia Southern favored in this game. This is at Brooks Stadium, Conway, South Carolina, which is always the home of the Coastal Carolina football team. So that is where this game will be played. But Ohio is going to be missing a lot for this game. If you look at their situation, they've already seen their quarterback, Curtis Rourke, opt out of this game. He's in the transfer portal. A couple receivers, couple running backs that are also not expected to play here for Ohio in this game. It also looks like C.J. Harris, of course, who is backed up Curtis Rourke and has actually played a lot of games in the place of Curtis Rourke. He's unavailable for this game as well. So you're talking about a lot of opt-outs, a lot of absences here for this Ohio Bobcats team heading into this bowl game. So clearly understandable why the money's come in on Georgia Southern. I was part of that move toward Georgia Southern once I started to hear a few days ago about the players missing here for Ohio. That kind of lent me toward Georgia Southern. Davis Brin, a very experienced quarterback, of course, leading the Eagles. They weren't a great defensive team, but certainly offensively, they could put up points. To me, I agree with the move. I mean, it's an information move. Ohio, it's a sure sign with Rourke out, C.J. Harris. They're down to basically a third-string quarterback for this game. It's going to be Parker Navarro, who just has not played very much. And what's funny is with the quarterbacks out, Parker Navarro is actually leading this team in rushing, believe it or not, and he's barely played. So you got some issues right now with Ohio and what they're going to put out there on the field on offense here in this game. So I probably agree with the Georgia Southern. I do agree with the Georgia Southern move. I got in on it. I just took the money line I think they were 2.5 when I bet the money line at -140. The money line's gone up a little bit, but I agree with the move. Feels like Georgia Southern, who might have been the better team anyway. Keep in mind the MAC has not always been a steady bowl team, or bowl conference, I should say, over the years. So I agree with the move. And obviously, Conor, the under's taken a lot of money as well in this game because of those opt-outs and those absences, especially on offense for Ohio. C-Mac, what do you think here, Myrtle Beach Bowl?
Yeah, and real quick on the total, Georgia Southern, a little bit of an over team. They worked about Ohio with their solid defense, was an under team all year, 9-3 to the under. Yeah, this is flipped. No Rourke out. You talked about the receivers, Cross, the running backs out. What do we get from Navarro? I have no idea. Georgia Southern, too, people are loving that. This kind of team stumbles down the stretch, loses last 4, and got beat down that last game against App State. And then it's kind of give them new life here, maybe, to win this bowl game. One thing is they don't have a great defense. And even at 3.5, I really don't want to be laying points with them. You talked about maybe going the money line route. Maybe that is the route to go to. One thing with Ohio, I still like this defense. I thought that's what kept him engaged, and maybe that can here. It's up in the air. Ohio's won its last 4 bowl games. I believe it won last year as well. So this one's tough. I get the move, though, here with Georgia Southern. Obviously, Rourke and a slew of other people. missing. But as of now, I like the under. I'm off the side.
All right, liking the under off the side here. But I would certainly lean under. The problem is, of course, the money has moved that way a little bit as of Nate. Oh, this total opened 54.5 down to 48. So the problem,
it's gotten
like the under, you've missed the best of the number at this point, no question. All right, the next game also on Saturday, December 16th, the New Orleans Bowl, Jacksonville State, UL Lafayette, the Ragin' Cajuns. We've got 57.5 the total here. In this game with Jacksonville State and Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. And it looks like Jacksonville State now currently as well in this game up to 3-point favorites. This is another one where there's been some money movement here. ULL opened a 1.5-point favorite, and now we're seeing Jacksonville State 3-point favorites here in this one. I probably agree with that. Now, the one thing about ULL that I want to point out is other than a linebacker who actually was pretty good for them, there's not really any major departures or transfer portal opt-outs here in this game, which is good to see for the Cajuns. I just think Jacksonville State's a better football team. That's really what this comes down to. I just think ULL was not a great team this year by any stretch of the imagination. 6-6, they barely made a bowl game. I don't think this program's been trending in the right direction since Billy Napier departed. And to be honest with you, it's not like Billy Napier's lighting it up at Florida, but I think this program in particular really misses Billy Napier. And Jacksonville State was just an outstanding team this year. Very good season for Rich Rod, of course. It looks like for them, Zion Webb at quarterback. I'm not seeing any major opt-outs for them. I'm sensing excitement from everything I've read from people that follow the program that they're into this bowl game. They're coming to win. So I got a team that I think is the better team, and they're coming to win, and I don't see anyone opting out. I agree. I like Jacksonville State. I think they're deserving of being the chalk here in this game. Connor, what do you think? New Orleans Bowl.
Yeah, kind of a rare thing where both these teams, no opt-outs really. I think there'll just be minimal here, even by the time this game goes. This is obviously close to home here for the Ragin' Cajuns. Just a classic 6-6 team, middle of the pack. In the Sun Belt, they don't do much well on either side of the ball. Very, very average. This Jacksonville State team, solid all year, very good against the number. Now laying 3.5 at this, I don't really want it. And you know what? I don't really want Lafayette, to tell you the truth, either in this football game. So this is one I just had to pass. Do we get a bunch of points, you think, here? Savannah, what do you think of this total?
I agree. That's another thing I was going to mention. Thank you, because I almost didn't mention it. I do like the over here. Obviously, it's going to be a controlled climate. This is Mercedes-Benz Superdome, home of the New Orleans Saints. So you're definitely not going to have any issues with weather. And I trust both offenses. And look, you know what you're going to get from Jacksonville State. You're going to get pace. You're going to get tempo. They play extremely fast. That's the way they've been all year. So I agree with the total going up a little bit here in this game. And if you look at ULL defensively, I mean, 31 allowed to Troy, 34. How did they allow 34 points to Southern Miss, 37 to Arkansas State? Those are two of the lesser teams in the conference and somehow in the Sun Belt. And somehow ULL just struggled mightily on defense. They're probably going to struggle against this good rushing attack. Yeah. It looks like for ULL, Chandler Fields is going to be a quarterback. Remember, Zion Chris is a guy that got injured early in the season, broken legs. So expect it to be Chandler Fields. Although that was a long time ago when Zion Chris got injured. Ben Wooldridge was the original starter. He got hurt. Zion Chris came in, then he got hurt, and Chandler Fields had to take over. Chandler Fields finished the season as the quarterback, but there's whispers that, Zion Chris actually might be healed enough from that to be back for this bowl game, but it's not confirmed as of yet. Either way, they're capable offensively. They're certainly better on Fields. The offensive side. Yeah, they're better on the offensive side than the defensive side. I'm just looking at the numbers right now here for Jack. Yeah, I'm looking at this run defense for ULL. They're giving up, 85th in the country, 160 rushing yards per game. That's not what you want to see, against a predominantly run-heavy offense like Jacksonville State. So, yeah, Jacksonville State and over. I think if I were to get involved in this bowl game, that's the way I would be looking in the New Orleans Bowl. All right, we continue along on Saturday. Next up, the Cure Bowl. This is at Orlando, Florida, FBC Mortgage Stadium. Oh, it's not Mercedes-Benz Superdome anymore, I should say. It's Caesars Superdome now. Sorry, I got the sponsor wrong
Caesars
with New Orleans. Yeah, Caesars Superdome. This is the Cure Bowl in Orlando. Miami, Ohio Redhawks out of the MAC. Appalachian State, the Sun Belt runners-up, of course, losing in the Sun Belt Championship game to Troy. Appalachian State 6-point favorites, 40. Well, it looks like the total is 44.5, 45, 45.5, 46. So we've got some split numbers with the total here in this one with Miami O and App State. This is a team that you got to be careful with, Miami O. Miami O, you think of them. Usually I like them in the underdog role. And my first thought when I saw this bowl matchup was, boy, maybe take the points here with Miami. We know they're the better defensive team. App State has not been a great defensive team this year. Their offense has been good with Aguilar at quarterback. They've been able to move the football, but the defense hasn't been anything all that special. You've got the better defense catching points, but then you start to see what's going on with Miami O. And starting quarterback, Avion Smith is in the transfer portal, so he's out of the playing in this game. They've already lost Brett Gabbert, their number one quarterback, for the season due to injury. So that leaves Miami O down to Henry Hessen at quarterback, their third QB on the depth chart here for this bowl game. And this is a guy that's only had 5 pass attempts in college. So not a very experienced signal caller under center for Miami O now here in this game. That's not what you want to see. And it's probably enough to keep me off the Miami O side, quite honestly, because, if this offense or this defense is good, but, if this offense struggles with a guy that's barely, thrown a pass in college, and they're going 3 and out all the time, even a good defense is eventually going to get worn down. And with all due respect to Miami O's defense, the MAC to me did not have a lot of great offenses this year outside of Toledo. Ohio underachieved on offense. Buffalo wasn't a great offense. You go on down the list, there was just not a slew of really, really good offensive teams in the MAC conference this year. And App State, the one thing they do have is they've got a great balanced offense. Aguilar played well. They've got speed, the likes of which they don't see often in the MAC either, Miami O, and that could be a challenge for them. So initially I lean Miami O, but then you start to read the tea leaves. You see Avion Smith in the transfer portal. They're down to the third quarterback. You wonder too, after beating and upsetting Toledo in the MAC championship game, I've seen this before with these teams that have that big upset win in the championship game. That's like their Super Bowl. The bowl game is like an afterthought, after winning the championship in the conference. So I'm worried about that mindset for Miami, where Chuck Martin's team just rolls in here and just treats it like a vacation, if you will, or a getaway, rather than a football game that they're really, really dead set on winning. So I'd actually lean App State now, but I don't know if I'm going to bet this particular bowl game. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I don't know if I bet this too. No Smith, Miami, Ohio, excellent. I thought in that game, in the MAC championship, I had the under, I had the money line and the points. So that was great. One thing I think they can do, I think, App State will move the ball, but I think they're going to find out this Miami Ohio defense is pretty good, but we're going to see the whole MAC here, like, a team like Miami, Ohio against a team like App State from the Sun Belt, 8-5, pretty good record. They can run it though. One thing, App State's defense, I thought it got better as the year went on, but they do give it up because they're just going to have to run it. That's what Miami and this offense with no Smith, they already was with him, being in there at QB. But I noticed, almost 180 yards a game App State gives up. So I think they could hang around. Now, is this enough? I wanted over the touchdown to kind of look Miami, Ohio, I thought, in this game. I think App State just a little bit better on all facets. So, yeah, I might be off. I still kind of lean under. This Miami, Ohio team has made me nothing but money all year. So it's kind of like I just maybe stay off here to the under and taking their points. So, yeah.
I have too much respect for Miami O and their defense and them as an underdog, which has been a good bet over the years, especially the last couple when they've had this better team, better defense. Not to mention App State's run defense. Go look at the numbers. It's not pretty for App State stopping the run. And that could be the pathway to Miami O hanging around potentially in this game. If they're able to establish the run, take pressure off this young quarterback that's barely thrown any. Now, they could look to stack the box. I'm sure they know it too. About the fact that they're down to a number 3 quarterback here. Stack the box, take Rashad Amos, Kevin Davis, the 2 running backs out of the equation and load up on the run and dare the quarterback to beat them. But still, that's a run defense that hasn't been great this year. And that's predominantly how Miami moves the football is through on the ground. So definitely keep that in mind. So it's a tricky game, but like I said, I initially really liked Miami-O in this bowl game, but with the opt-outs, that's often the writing on the wall for me, because I find last year when I saw opt-outs like crazy with one particular team, that team ended up playing disastrously more often than not in the bowl game. So that's always a concern right now. Like I say, the transfer portal's changed a lot of things. You've really got to see who's in, who's out, and that transfer portal's a big game changer now if you're handicapping bowl season. There's no question about it. All right, next up, the New Mexico Bowl, where we have New Mexico State and Fresno State. We have the Aggies, New Mexico State, 3.5-point favorites. 51 is the total here in this game. When you look at this, I think the money going toward New Mexico State's accurate. Now, keep in mind, we did see Diego Pavia elbow injury that he suffered in the Conference USA Championship game against Liberty, and he couldn't finish that game for New Mexico State. So we'll see if he is better and good to go for this game. It looks like Jerry Kill says he is, so that's a good sign that New Mexico State will have their now he's not a star quarterback compared to, your big Power 5 QBs like Nix and Penix Jr. and Jaden Daniels, who just won the Heisman, and quarterbacks like that. But for a group of 5 quarterback, this is a star quarterback. He was excellent this year. Diego Pavia, outstanding season, used his arm, got better, I thought, with his accuracy. Obviously, he's got the mobility as well. This was just an outstanding season for New Mexico State. The fact that they lost in Conference USA's championship game against Liberty, we just talked about it, Conor, with Miami-O. I think there's a mentality where when you won the conference championship, you come into your bowl game, and the bowl game's kind of like an afterthought, or kind of like and that's not as important or as, meaningful for us as winning our conference championship. There sometimes can be a letdown for teams after they win their conference championship when they play their bowl game. That's what I'd worry about with Miami-O. With this game, you've got New Mexico State off losing the conference championship game. I think they want to bounce back here and finish the season with a W, finish it strong, and end on a high note, because this whole season really has been a high note for New Mexico State. They've gotten better. And when you look at Fresno State on the flip side in this New Mexico Bowl, it's a team that limped down the stretch. 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. They didn't play good football. They got blown out by San Jose State, blown out by San Diego State, which was an atrocious loss in their final game. They lose as 23-point favorites against New Mexico at home. Now you've got Jeff Tedford, who has stepped away from the team for health reasons, so he isn't coaching here in the bowl game. Tim Skipper, who is the assistant head coach and the linebacker coach, is going to assume head coaching duties. So you've got a coaching influx here. You've got Logan Fife in the transfer portal here for Fresno State. Couple of key players on defense, have entered the transfer portal and have opted out, won't play in this bowl game either on the Fresno State side. To me, it's a clear, in my opinion, motivational advantage. And yes, Mikey Keene will be still there and be the starting quarterback for Fresno. But I got to say it, since he missed that game, or what I think it was way back in the season due to injury, he's been a little bit more erratic as far as his play down the stretch. I mean, you look at these last couple of games, he's barely had 60% completions. And in the last 3 games, those 3 losses, he has 1 touchdown only and 2 interceptions. So it's not like Mikey Keene played well for Fresno in those last 3 games where they lost all 3 of them, both straight up in ATS. So the money's moved on New Mexico State. I agree with it. I've already bet New Mexico State. I think they're the side here in this one. Conor, New Mexico Bowl, what do you think?
Yeah, I like New Mexico State in this game, and especially really Pavia, the whole shoulder with him. They say, Jerry Kill, that everything's looking good. So as long as I hear that here coming up, I'll be on them. Fresno State, you talked about Tedford being out. This happened 3 or 4 years ago. That's not a great sign. The defense early on was pretty good, and they were great. They got turnovers. But, man, I think they're 7th in the country. I think it was 11 or 12 this year plus. And it kind of faded down the stretch. And what is not good, what New Mexico State does really well, is runs the football. And when I saw these last 3 weeks, New Mexico, not a very good football team, 350, 320 for San Jose. And even last week, a San Diego State team that wasn't good at all, really had run the ball with much success, 220. So if they can't stop the run, this could be a long day for Fresno State. So I agree with you here. It's just waiting on the news with Pavia, New Mexico State.
No doubt. All right, LA Bowl, obviously Los Angeles, based on the name. SoFi Stadium, home of the Chargers and the Rams. We've got UCLA, Boise State, UCLA 2.5-point favorites, 49.5 the total. I don't know if it's still the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. I think that's what they called it initially. I don't know if that's still the sponsor or not, but the LA Bowl, nevertheless, UCLA and Boise State. So when the bowl matchups got announced, like I was ready to just pounce on Boise State here in this game, because Boise State has been a different team since the coaching change, since Andy Avalos got the boot. This has been a totally different team, no question about that. They have totally rallied around Spencer Danielson, who is the new head coach. And, he's now also been officially named for sure, like the moving forward head coach. The interim tag's off for Spencer Danielson, and I think he's earned it. Like that team played really well down the stretch. They rolled down the stretch. They played great football. They beat Air Force. They absolutely kicked UNLV's ass in the in the Mountain West Championship game. I mean, that was just all Boise right from the very beginning. So there is no doubt. My first thought here in this game was definitely look Boise State here in this game. That being said, there are some concerns. Talon Green, their quarterback, he entered the transfer portal. One of their edge rushers in the transfer portal. You've got a couple injuries that you've got to watch out for. And with Talon Green in the transfer portal, which means he ain't playing in this game, you would have liked to have had your backup quarterback available if you're Boise State, Maddox Madsen. But unfortunately, he's out for the season due to injury. So they are actually going to have to go to a guy named Colt Fulton, possibly, as the quarterback here for this bowl game against UCLA. So that would be the biggest concern I would have here now with Boise is, going down to the third quarterback. You just don't know what you're going to get, in that kind of situation. He just hasn't played a whole lot at all. I'm trying to see I tried to look into it and see what kind of prototype quarterback he is. He does have some mobility, but more so a throwing quarterback for Boise. We'll see how he fares here in this one. Again, he just hasn't played a whole lot for Boise. All that being said, with the concerns I just mentioned for Boise, there's no way I'm taking UCLA. There's just not. It's just not for me a situation I want UCLA in right now. There's some question marks about this program moving forward. They ended that. The fact that they absolutely, after the USC game, just basically rolled over and played dead against Cal. And I was happy because I had Cal plus the points. I thought that was a phenomenal spot, phenomenal bet against UCLA in that final game. But that just tells me that this program, how enthusiastic are they for this game? I mean, they're basically in their backyard. It's not some special trip or special getaway for them. They're basically playing right at home. And I don't know if that's anything special necessarily for the Bruins here in this game. So I would still only look to the Boise State side, but now with a little caution because we are talking about a very inexperienced quarterback that might be under center here for the Broncos. That being said, how's UCLA going to move the football? Boise State's defense has played better. You could say that too about Boise. UCLA's strength is their defense. And by the way, Dante Moore in the transfer portal for UCLA. It looks like Ethan Garbers, he was banged up down the stretch, is going to be healthy enough to play. And if he is healthy enough to play, he will start. Ethan Garbers at quarterback here for UCLA. But I still lean Boise. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, we'll see with the UCLA in this one. They got a bunch of guys that go to transfer, obviously more. But I think that's better. As long as Garbers was healthy, I thought he was the better quarterback all year long. Moore just had the problem turning the ball over. UCLA's defense is great. One thing that I saw in this matchup was their third. They only gave up 69 on the ground. Boise, 7th in the country at 214. And that's what they did against UNLV. They just threw them around. They ran for 301. They just killed them at the line of scrimmage. We'll see if they can do that here. I think they can. The big question until a few days ago, Green. I thought this guy's got to be there, and he's now out like you talked about. So it's like, is he for sure out? Some of these guys come back. I don't know. I doubt it. I kind of lean Boise too, but I think you just stick with the under. I don't know how much UCLA is going to move the ball in this game, so I'm looking at the under here. And on the side, I'm looking at Boise a little bit.
All right, we move along to this is the last game now. Next up of the Saturday games on December 16th, it's the Independence Bowl, Shreveport, Louisiana, California, and Texas Tech. We got Texas Tech 2.5 3-point favorites, 58 being the total here in this game here, Cal and Texas Tech. You look at this matchup, and Cal honestly down the stretch, played better. We saw them beat UCLA pretty well. We saw them almost upset USC, give a bunch of teams a good game. For Fernando Mendoza, I thought acquitted himself quite well at quarterback once he got the reins. And, of course, Jade Knott, an outstanding running back for Cal, no question about that. We'll see how they fare here against Texas Tech. Texas Tech, gave up 4.5 yards per carry, 167.8 rushing yards per game this season. So they weren't exactly great against the run. We'll see how they fare here. We'll see how the defense plays, especially in this game after giving up a 57 spot in their final regular season game against Texas, where that game just got ugly for the Red Raiders in that one. You're going to see, obviously, Baron Morton at quarterback for Texas Tech, and he's a pretty easy quarterback to figure out. When he faces the great teams, the great defenses, he struggles. He's not that good against those kind of opponents. But, against teams that defensively aren't nearly as good, he's capable of putting up points. When you look at Cal, this is a team that against, UCLA, they were able to shut him down. But you put him against Washington State, they give up 39, Oregon 63, USC 50, Utah 34, Oregon State 52, Washington 59. This probably is going to feel like an easier matchup here for Baron Morton and for Cal going into this game. I kind of lean over in this game with 57.5, 58. Cal, played a little bit faster as far as tempo on offense this year. I don't trust Texas Tech's defense, and I like what I saw from Mendoza at QB, Ott at running back, and I think Cal can move the football against Tech, and I think Tech is going to have a bounce-back offensive game here against Cal after that Texas debacle. So more than anything here, as long as the weather holds up Saturday night in Shreveport, I would look over. I think it's tough from a side perspective because it's kind of two teams I was hoping to bet on here in bowl season, and unfortunately they're playing each other. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, they are a couple just average 6-6 teams. When I look at these two, as long as we'll have to wait with Ott. I mean, as now he's in. And on the flip side, Brooks, their good running back, he's a go for Texas Tech in this one. You talked about the defenses. I thought Texas Tech played a little bit better, and they get drubbed by a British team, obviously, in Texas. And Cal, who was just awful all year long, but let's look who they played. It was Stanford and UCLA. So how do you take from that their defense? Did it really get any better? I'm not so sure. These teams should be motivated. You're right. And I think there could be points as well. I kind of leaned over in this one. This was tough. I guess sidewise, I'd lean Texas Tech small if you get under the field goal. Something I don't love, but I'd look their way.
Yeah. I think it's I kind of initially, if you look at where this line is, assuming both teams have their full allotment of players, I would agree. But as I look at it here with Texas Tech, there are a couple receivers that are going to miss. They're in the portal.
Oh yeah, watch both sides. Both these, yep. Right? Yeah, yes.
Left tackles in the portal for Tech as well. There's a couple of there's more backup players, but there's a few more and Cal does have a couple linebackers out. The leading tackler, by the way, for Cal is missing. That's kind of why I like the over here in this game, especially because that guy was by far their leading tackler, Caleb Alarms, or the linebacker for Cal. So I just think it sets up for points in this game. I think Cal's offense can move the ball here. Texas Tech's defense didn't exactly play great late in the season. I think Tech now against this defense, again, Cal's defense against, offenses that were capable, they didn't exactly shut teams down. So I would look over. The side's tricky. I would agree with that. All right, next up is Monday, December the 18th. We've got the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers taking on the Old Dominion Monarchs in the, holy shit, these bowl names. I mean, famous Toastery Bowl. My goodness, these bowl games names are getting even more outlandish by the year. Famous Toastery Bowl here, Western Kentucky and Old Dominion on Monday, December 18. This is in Charlotte, North Carolina, Jerry Richardson Stadium. We've got Old Dominion 2.5-point favorites, 55.5 being the total. here in this game. You look at this matchup there for as far as transfer portal issues that you have to worry about. A couple receivers for Old Dominion in the transfer portal. The big one too, injury-wise, is that they're one of the best leading tacklers in the country, not just Old Dominion's own team, but the country. Jason Anderson may not play in this game, and that would be a big loss on defense for Old Dominion. There's no question about that.
Yeah, 170 tackles. He was all over the field. Yeah,
he was. So that's a huge loss. But they're going up against a Western Kentucky offense that was just nothing special this year compared to what we've seen. We're so used to Western Kentucky just rolling on offense, piling up the points. For some reason, there was just it wasn't consistent with them from start to finish this year. I mean, even in games against Sam Houston State, UTEP, you would expect big points in those games, and they were okay, but not great. They did get burst out offensively against Florida International, but FIU did have their share of issues defensively down the stretch. We'll see how this game plays out. This is one where I'd probably lean a little bit towards an over here. Old Dominion with Grant Wilson at quarterback. He's kind of a mid-range quarterback, little good, little bad, kind of up and down on the season overall. You look at his numbers down the stretch. Some good games, some bad games. But Western Kentucky's defense, to me, late in the season, concerning. 28 points to Florida International, concerning. 38 points to New Mexico State, 42 points to Liberty. Those are good offenses, but 28 to Louisiana Tech wasn't exactly a great offense. And even with their own offense kind of underachieving at times this year, we were able to see Western Kentucky, move the football against weaker defenses. They probably should be able to move it here. I would probably lean over in this game. I don't think I want Western Kentucky, though. Kind of an overvalued team much of the season. And what I like about Old Dominion, and this is something to be be mindful of with these bowl games, the team that won their final game and scrapped and clawed like crazy to win that final game to get into bowl eligibility, those are usually good teams to bet in their bowl game. And that's Old Dominion. They had to come back from the brink against Georgia State in their final game. It was a thrilling comeback. It was epic because they were down big, and they came back and they won on the final play of the game, 25-24. I know because I was on Old Dominion money line in that game.
Field goal, State. Safety, get the ball, score on the last. But
unbelievable. That was a team that was playing their ass off to get into a bowl game. And to me, that indicates a team that's not only going to want to be there and win in the bowl game. So motivation-wise, even with that key opt-out potentially on defense or absence on defense for Old Dominion, I don't think I want to step in front of ODU, especially with Western Kentucky just not nearly as good as they've been the last few years. So mild leans for me as of right now, ODU and over the total. Conor, what do you think?
Yeah, I think if you like Old Dominion under the 3 or go money line, this was a team better as a dog all year long. They don't talk about it, really anything great. Wilson just average. The defense not great. Western Kentucky missing a few linemen in this game. They got to tackle out their center out. But Old Dominion doesn't get really any pressure. They were down at the bottom getting sacks all year long. You talked about Henderson already being out for Old Dominion. They got to be ecstatic to be here, though, in this one, like you talked about. And we'll see. As long as Reed's in this game, I mean, I think he'll be here. And you talked about Western Kentucky's defense was kind of bad all year long. And they played all right because they would get interceptions. That really helped them out. That was their key. And when they don't, they could just get burned. But Old Dominion, not a team. They had one really bad loss, I thought, Bavana, was to Liberty. And that was one I was against. But they were a dog. They covered. And in these games they won, they won by 3. They won by 1. They won by a touchdown against App State, just in the football game. So I kind of like, as long as under the 3 points, I think this game could be fun. Old Dominion can get the win. Just not a team you want to lay more than that with.
No, I agree.
more than a field goal.
They're the epic epitome team that you never want to lay more than a field goal with a team like Old Dominion. So I agree. I think less than 3, they're still a solid bet. If it gets more than that, I'm not as interested. All right, we got the Frisco Bowl, Frisco, Texas, Marshall, Thundering Herd, UTSA Roadrunners. We've got UTSA 8.5, now up to 9.5. I'm even seeing 10s now, so the money's coming in on UTSA here. 53.5 being the total here in this game. It probably sets up for UTSA right now when you look at it to be kind of a celebration bowl game where you thought this team's totally disbanding, that you were probably going to lose your head coach Jeff Traylor, and now that's not the case. Jeff Traylor sticking around here at UTSA and obviously coaching this bowl game too. And you look at the situation for UTSA, they're kind of taking on the makeup of their coach sticking around. Now, unfortunately, they have a couple opt-outs. One's not that big of a deal because he hasn't played half the season. The other is huge, and that's Trey Moore, who is absolutely one of the better defensive players on this Roadrunners team. So that will hurt UTSA. How much will it hurt, though? Because the good news for UTSA here is Marshall's offense stinks. Okay, this has been a horrendous offensive team much of the season. And now you look at Marshall's situation going into this bowl game. Cam Fancher is in the transfer portal, their starting quarterback. So Cole Pennington, who doesn't have much experience, is going to start. And their best offensive lineman by far, Trent Holler, who is extremely experienced and is the glue for that O-line, he is in the transfer portal as well. So this is already a bad offense now with a backup quarterback and the starting center, who's all world for this team, missing for Marshall.
Yeah,
so
their tight end's going to be out.
Yep.
It looks like Caleb Combs, he's going to be out. I don't know what they do here. Yeah.
They're changing offensive coordinators in the offseason. That's always a moving part. And more importantly, there's some real thought that it hasn't been announced, but it eventually will be. Their all-world running back, Rasheen Ali, is also not going to play in this bowl game for Marshall. And if that happens, even with UTSA missing, one of their best defensive players, probably their best defensive player in Trey Moore, is it really going to matter? Because how the hell do you trust Marshall to do anything offensively at this point? So the bettors are reacting. They know UTSA is harmony again. Jeff Traylor's sticking around for the bowl game. The majority of their starters on offense and defense outside of Moore are playing, which is good to see going into this bowl game as well. And, of course, Frank Harris, as at least unless something changes, he'll be starting at quarterback for UTSA here. So the bettors see what I see, that Marshall, to me, is unbackable in this game. It's just a question of, do you want to lay this many with UTSA or not? What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I think you do. I think this is a big one. You lay the number or look to UTSA's team total over. And, one thing Marshall can hang their hat on, they're just missing the slew on the offense. You rip through it, is they've been pretty good defense all year long. And they have to go through who's all going to be out there. UTSA, this seems just like the game to win here. For Harris, the whole, shindig, go out on top. I'd also look with Marshall. Cole Pennington came in a little bit with an offense that was already dreadful. 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Chad Pennington's son, not doing great. I don't know what he does here. And I thought UTSA's defense was pretty good, especially a team like Marshall. They should hold him down. So I look on the other side to Marshall's team total under in this game, and even the full game under. You don't see a ton. I know Marshall got into like a shootout or two during the year, but for the most part, if they can't move the ball, I don't think even the full game this goes over. I look under.
Yeah, and no doubt this is, that's terrible, by the way, in the starting game, in the games he started down the stretch for Marshall, for Cole Pennington, 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's as bad as it gets as far as a TD to INT ratio. So that is definitely not what you want to see at the quarterback position, no question. All right, next up, we've got the Boca Raton Bowl. This is on Thursday, December 21st, Syracuse and South Florida. Syracuse, 3.5-point road favorites, 61-62 the total. Of course, Dino Babers was let go by this Syracuse team in the offseason. Nunzio Campanile is going to be the interim head coach here for the Syracuse Orange in this game. That's not a bet on bowl situation when you've got, interim coach and interim staff coaching the bowl game, because the great Dave Malinsky, rest in peace, rest his soul, a great man, a great bettor, and great wisdom and knowledge he had. He always said the interim staff in a bowl game, they're not so concerned with prepping the game plan for the bowl game. Their concern is getting their fucking resumes sent out there for the next
their next job. Yeah.
the next job. That's what he always said. That's what they're focused on. So that's not exactly, a situation that I like betting on when you got a makeshift interim coaching staff coaching up a team for a bowl game and a team that obviously sputtered and struggled down the stretch. Then you've got South Florida, a team that's had their lumps the last few years. I think there's excitement to play in this bowl game. You look also at Syracuse, Leon Lowry Jr., one of their key pass rushers, dominant one of their this year, a very good player. He's in the transfer portal. A couple other defensive players in the transfer portal. Looks like Garrett Schrader, though, will play this bowl game. He is healthy, but they are missing some guys on defense. For USF here, it looks like, largely not many people in the transfer portal, and a good sign for them. And Byron Brown, I should say, he looks like he's going to start. This offense was very good for South. No, the defense wasn't. No question about that. But we know the Syracuse offense wasn't exactly lighting things up. I think here in the bowl game, though, Syracuse can move the ball. Syracuse is in better shape offensively than defensively going into this bowl game because a lot of their absences in the portal are defensive players, and a couple of them are key defensive players. So I actually like two bets in this game. I like USF. I agree with the move. I think there's still value, still a good number. You can get them at 3.5 right now. I still think they're a good play, plus 3.5 on South Florida in this game. I also like the over. I agree with that move. Should be very little, if any, weather issues down in Florida. FAU Stadium, home of the Florida Atlantic Owls. Total's gone up 57.5 to 61. South Florida, one of the fastest paced teams in the country. They've got the former OC from Tennessee that's their head coach there. So same kind of system, extreme tempo. Their offense can score quickly. And we know Syracuse can give up points as well, like they did down the stretch. But I think Syracuse can score a little bit themselves because South Florida defense, we know, hasn't been great this year. So I like the USF side, and I like the over here in the Boca Raton Bowl. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there could be points this can get over, especially with South Florida's defense. Yeah, you hit on. I like this for South Florida. Not a far travel here. Game in Florida. They should be relaxed. They got to a bowl game, a team that's supposed to win, 2 or 3 games. They go 6-6. So they got to be up. Brown was pretty good all year, and I think he has success in this game. So I grabbed the 3.5 with South Florida. And I think it could get over. You were talking about. I haven't bet the over. I lean that way, but I think the Bulls hang around here, maybe win it.
All right, Gasparilla Bowl, Friday, December 22nd, Raymond James Stadium, Tampa Bay, Florida, Central Florida, Georgia Tech. We've got UCF 4.5-point favorites, 64.5 being the total here in this game. Obviously, this is a situation where for UCF, Tampa, pretty damn close, to the campus. Not the bounce house, but pretty damn close here. Tampa, Florida. Tampa not far from Orlando. UCF, solid season, 6-6. Georgia Tech lost their final game to Georgia, 31-23. But I got to admit, Georgia Tech impressed me down the stretch. Played some good football. Beat North Carolina. Beat Virginia badly. They had the one loss that was pretty bad against Clemson, 42-21, but bounced back against Syracuse and then against Georgia. Now, you could say how much was Georgia invested in that game with the SEC championship on the horizon. But still, Georgia Tech, wire-to-wire point spread cover. They were able to move the football against Georgia for periods of that game as well. So pretty solid effort there. I like Georgia Tech's offense. I mean, I've never had an issue with Haynes King. I think he's been solid. They've got Jamal Haynes running the ball along with Dante Smith as well. Eric Singleton Jr., good receiver. There's things to like about Georgia Tech's offense here. What's concerning, though, is 2 of their better defensive players are in the portal. Kyle Kennard, Keenan Johnson here for Georgia Tech. So that's going to hurt. UCF, though, is missing, a key starting cornerback who's really good, Corey Thornton as well, going into this game. And then there's a couple more cluster injuries in the secondary, players that were out late in the season that may also miss this bowl game here due to injury. So I think this sets up as points here in this bowl game. And the betting markets agree because this total opened 61.5. It's up to 64. I agree. I would look over. I'd probably lean Georgia Tech, though, if I were to play the side. What do you think here, Conor?
Yeah, one thing UCF should have success is running the ball because Georgia Tech just not very good. Both these teams, Bavano, just up and down. You couldn't really figure them out.
On UCF should run on Georgia.
Should run it, yeah, with Plumlee. some at a few big wins, some bad losses. I still remember even at home for UCF in the bounce house you were talking about to Baylor. A few of those games were bad. West Virginia, they did win 3 or 4 down the stretch and look a lot better. I think there's points here too. I'd lean over, and I just think Central Florida, they might win this game, but I don't really want to lay basically a touchdown in this game. 6 points. So I looked away with Georgia Tech, especially if they don't turn the ball over. Haynes King, he had a few really bad games, but I think he should have some success. And I always like the athletes. You talked about, though, that's going to hurt Conor, one of their better defensive players, being gone. That doesn't look well. It looks like he's going to maybe Florida State, too. I was looking at that last night. So, but yeah, I think Georgia Tech can hang around here. I think we see points.
All right, let's go to Saturday now, December 23rd. We have a bunch of bowl games on that day, starting with the Birmingham Bowl. Birmingham, Alabama, Duke versus Troy. Troy 7.5-point favorites, 44 being the total here in this matchup with the Blue Devils and the Trojans. Obviously, we know Mike Elko's gone. He's departed for A&M. And in comes Manny Diaz, who's been announced as the new head coach for Duke. But, of course, he's not coaching the bowl game. This is the makeshift interim staff, just like we talked about with Syracuse, that's going to be coaching this bowl game. So I can't say that's necessarily a good thing. It's Trooper Taylor. Love that name. Trooper Taylor, who's going to be the interim head coach here for Duke in this bowl game. Elko's gone to A&M. Like I said, Diaz takes over, but he won't take over till after the bowl game. And more than anything, the money's come in on Duke, and I get why. Riley Leonard in the transfer portal. Grayson Loftus is probably going to start. Now, this guy wasn't that bad when he was in there, but obviously not the same as Riley Leonard. One of your key pass rushers, R.J. Oben in the portal. A couple defensive linemen in the portal. A key linebacker in the portal. A very, very important secondary player in the portal, Jalen Stinson. I mean, you go on and on. There's a lot of opt-outs and a lot of key defensive opt-outs for Duke. Not to mention, of course, Leonard gone and Grayson Loftus starting at quarterback here for this bowl game. So the money's come in on Troy. But is Troy one of those teams that, against Duke with the coaching staff and, like I said, it's an interim staff, not a bet-on situation for me in bowl games. Is Troy a team that I'm comfortable laying more than a touchdown with? And I'm not so sure about that. I definitely think if you got below 7, it's not a bad bet. But definitely when you look at the other side of it, and by the way, keep in mind, Troy lost John Sumrall. He's the head coach now at Tulane. So the defensive coordinator, Greg Gasparilla, is going to end up being the interim head coach for this bowl game for Troy. So be careful with this. I mean, I think if you got Troy early, good, but not now at 7.5. And keep in mind, Troy's got an interim staff going forward here for the bowl game as well. So it's probably not a game I'm betting. What do you think here, Conor?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit tricky, but I think the motivation isn't really there for Duke. I don't love seeing all these guys on defense really go, because I think that's what would keep this game tight and why you'd want to be on Duke. So this is one I think you wait on. I'm going to wait longer. I really didn't have an opinion on it. You talked about Riley Leonard. Maybe looks like he's going to Notre Dame. I just saw a tweet. He's getting the money, getting a Gillette deal for Riley Leonard. Shout out to him. That guy.
Yeah, shout out to him.
Good things.
All he's doing is getting the best a man can get, right?
Yeah, Gillette. You know it. Troy, though, all year long is really, really good. You just hit it, though. Over the touchdown. This is a wait for me if I'm going to even bet on this game. Same thing with the total. Maybe it could get over if this gets low with these Duke guys being out. Yeah, this was a wait and see.
All right, we move along. Also, Saturday, December 23rd, Camellia Bowl, Montgomery, Alabama. It's actually at the same time as the Birmingham Bowl. Arkansas State, Northern Illinois. Arkansas State 1-point favorites here, 53.5 being the total in this one. As far as this matchup goes, we have Rocky Lombardi, quarterback for Northern Illinois, Jalen Rayner, quarterback for Arkansas State. So both of these teams will have their starting quarterbacks. As far as opt-outs go, I think both teams have a couple guys that are going to be out. Trayvon Rudolph, who's their best receiver, is in the portal, and he's by far their best receiver. So look out for that. That's concerning. They've got injuries at that position. They've got cluster injuries and absences and opt-outs. It's safety and in the secondary. So they're a little short in those two areas. Arkansas State looks like their starting linebacker, Javonte Mackey, is not going to be there. A couple of defensive linemen have opted out. They're in the portal here as well. They are going to get their anchor on the O-line back, though, for this bowl game, which is important, the center. So this is an interesting spot here. But you look at Arkansas State, I'm probably interested in them a little bit here at a pick 'em in this game. I feel like, whenever I can get, a team from, the Sun Belt facing a team from the MAC, especially when they're middling teams, there's not a whole lot of difference in separation. I think you can make a case here a little bit for Arkansas State in this game. Do I love it? No. I don't know if I'll get involved, but right now I do lean a little bit to the Arkansas State side going into this game. I think from a matchup standpoint, too, one thing you want to keep in mind here, yes, Arkansas State had ups and downs late in the season, no question, but I think when you hang 77 on Texas State in a huge win, that was an incredible performance, and then you end up hanging with South Alabama. I mean, they were rolling pretty good. I think that Marshall loss, which was a bad loss at the end of the year for Arkansas State, was more so that they had run the gauntlet. They played, South Alabama, very good team. They beat the hell out of solid Texas State. I think they fell flat. I think it was more they just fell flat against Marshall. I think they can rebound here. Not sure I'll bet it, but I definitely would probably lean to the Arkansas State side. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I know. I had finally got on Arkansas State a little bit. They had covered for me, and then I had them there against Marshall in that last game, and I was a loser. I want to know how good this Northern Illinois defense is. I don't think they're very good because I think I lean over in this matchup, especially with some of the guys being out on both sides of the ball. I think both teams could have success scoring points here. So I was kind of a coin flip for me on the side with this game. I just think we get points, so I like the over. 52.5, 53.
Yeah, I certainly would look over. It's a reasonable total. And we've seen Arkansas State fly over totals of this in this range, 53, 53.5. Northern Illinois doesn't always go over this kind of number, but I think in this game with defensive question marks on both sides, I could see it going over the total. All right, next up, we've got the Armed Forces Bowl, James Madison and Air Force. James Madison, 3-point favorites, 41 the total in this game. I'm glad we're seeing James Madison in a bowl game. This has been an excellent team in 2 seasons that they've been in the FBS. And finally, they waived that damn, suspend or penalty for them not being in a bowl game. So they're finally in one this year. Unfortunately, they're playing Air Force, and I have a very tough time betting against the service academies in bowl games because they're always prepared. They always want to play well. They always want to win. You always get a great effort, C-Mac, from the service academies in bowl games, whether it's Army, Air Force, Navy. You always get their best. And so it's not an easy matchup here for James Madison necessarily in this game. I'll be honest, I don't have much here. I probably don't know if I bet this game. I probably don't. And I look at James Madison as a team that's finally in a bowl game for the first time in program history, an FBS bowl game. They're fired up. They're going to want it. I would think, but at the same time, Air Force, I don't like stepping in front of these service academy schools in these bowl games. One thing I do want to point out, obviously triple option, Air Force predominantly a run-based offense. James Madison, absolutely sensational against the run this year. Keep that in mind. They were outstanding stopping the run, James Madison, throughout the course of the season. Excellent numbers for them against the run, which means it could be tough sledding for Air Force to move the football in this game here against James Madison, which is probably also why the total is as low as it is here, sitting around 41. What do you think here, Conor? Armed Forces Bowl.
Yeah, James Madison, they got to be pumped to get to the bowl game, but coach leaves. Quarterback's not going to be playing in this game. So I don't know what we get. You talked about that's the big key, though. You hit on what I want to touch on was James Madison
off to Indiana. Yep.
Former head coach. The run here. James Madison against the run. Air Force. That's just what they do. Yeah. So 2 clash right there. I think all the rest. I mean, Air Force was so bad down the stretch. It was just awful. Hopefully they could get healthy. There shouldn't be many opt-outs for Air Force in this game. I kind of lean Air Force and under. I would take the points here, especially if you could get over the field goal, and on the total, it's still lean under.
keep in mind, don't be like. There's a lot of times you see the transfer portal opt-outs, and most of the time they don't play in the bowl game. I'm seeing that a lot of JMU transfer portal players, including McLeod, Jordan McLeod,
could be back.
May actually play still in this bowl game.
Yeah, I kind of thought that with Green. There's a few of these guys. They go and they still might play. So keep an eye on all this stuff, which you got to with these games, but especially with that,
Yeah, that's also why more than ever before I don't bet many bowl games early. There's one bowl game that I bet real early from a side perspective, and that's it. I'm waiting to hear on who's exactly in and out closer to kickoff for many of these.
Oh, games. That's right up to it. I think with these bowl games,
yeah, exactly. So you just don't want to be stuck with, I thought this guy was going to play. I thought this guy wasn't going to play, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with maybe a bad number and. You're in trouble at that point. All right, Potato Bowl next up. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl. This is always in Boise, Idaho, of course, home of Boise State. Georgia State, Utah State. Utah State -1, 62 and a half the total here in this game. You look at this matchup here. Georgia State, lots of players in the portal right now, including players that have played, just a shit ton of reps and snaps on the football field. So that's concerning for me for Georgia State. Whereas you look at Utah State, probably Levi Williams is going to get the start. You talk about a revolving door of quarterbacks for Blake Anderson. That's exactly what he's had this year. I mean, we've seen Levi Williams, we've seen Cooper Legas, we've seen McKay Hillstead, but Legas and Hillstead are banged up. So very possible here that we end up seeing Levi Williams end up being quarterback here for Utah State in this game. I think with the opt-outs I see from Georgia State here in this game, and plus their defense is a little shaky to begin with, I'd probably lean a little to Utah State here. Tricky travel, too, for Georgia State, all the way from the southeast, and you're going all the way northwest to Boise, Idaho here. So, I could probably make a case for Utah State. I don't love the game, but I could see that being the way to go here in this game. With these two defenses, I could only play over the total as well. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Over. And one thing, it kind of, like against App State or LSU 14, they should get more than 14, even with what's going on. I think Georgia State, that's how bad Utah State's defense, I thought, was all year. And they were bad against the run. So Georgia State should have success. They're better against the pass. Flip side, Utah State should be able to throw it here all over Georgia State. So this was, for me, the over. Yeah, this was like Old Dominion. I don't want to be laying more than 3. A team that just really didn't win by number when they got wins was Utah State. But this isn't the best spot. As long as this is just 1.5, or take it money line, pick them. I think Utah State is the lean here for me as well.
All right, next up, South Alabama, Eastern Michigan. This is the 68 Ventures Bowl. For me, this is the bowl season, the 68 Bets Bowl, because that's honestly usually how many bets I have, 68 bets when it comes to the bowl season. But 68 Ventures Bowl, South Alabama, Eastern Michigan. South Alabama, 16-point favorites, 47 and a half the total here in this one. Lot of points, and I'm never fully comfortable laying 16, 17 with anybody, quite honestly, in a bowl game. And the one thing about Eastern Michigan, this is not a vintage Eastern Michigan team. They've had better teams. Chris Creighton's had better teams than this one. There's no question about that. But there is something about Eastern Michigan. The bowl season, this coach has done well at ATS in bowl games. And even with there's a huge discrepancy in talent in this game. There's no doubt. South Alabama is just a much, much better team. And by the way, for Eastern Michigan, Austin Smith is not going to play. He's in the transfer portal for Eastern Michigan. But to be honest, Austin Smith was a mediocre at best quarterback. Ike Udengwu is going to end up being the quarterback here, it looks like, in this game for Eastern Michigan. And he's primarily a running quarterback. He's not got a great arm, so we'll have to see how that holds up here against South Alabama, whose defensive strength coming into this season is actually, believe it or not, they weren't spectacular. I guess you could say. Let me see what they were. Actually, they were very good against the run, South Alabama. So is that a run-based, run-heavy offense and a run-heavy quarterback? Is it going to work against South Alabama's defense? We'll have to wait and see. For South Alabama, though, they do have Carter Bradley, their quarterback, who, of course, started his career at Toledo. questionable. He re-aggravated a knee injury. Now the good news for South Alabama is they've had, a couple of quarterbacks that have had experience for them the last couple of years. If Carter Bradley doesn't play, they'd be turning to either Desmond Trotter or Gio Lopez. They've both seen time. It is worth noting, though, for South Alabama, their best receivers in the transfer portal won't play. A couple of key pass rushers won't play. And there are also, a couple of injuries on the O-line late in the season as well for South Alabama. So keep an eye on that. Bottom line is I haven't moved on this bowl game yet. There's still some things to sort out before kickoff on Saturday, December 23rd. But my inclination is if there's any reason I can get behind Eastern Michigan here, plus all these points for a coach that's been good as a dog, for a coach that's been good in bowl games over the years, ATS, I'll try to find that way to get on Eastern Michigan here. What do you think, Conor?
Yeah, this is one a wait for me. South Alabama too, just a team that I couldn't really rely on. I mean, this team had huge wins, and they come back and have horrible games, horrible turnovers, and you just scratch your head. You talked about, and the defense could look really good, and then they've had some games where they give up a ton of points, and you're like, what's going on? Wait, they're the better football team, 2 touchdowns. You talk about the success, though, Eastern Michigan in these bowl games. They're really rough. I don't know what they do here, though. They can't throw it. They're going to just try to run it. I don't know how much success they will have here. So, yeah, this is a no bet for me, and a wait and see.
All right, we moved on to still another Saturday. There are lots of bowl games. Saturday, December 23rd. This is another one. Las Vegas Bowl. Conor, right in your backyard, Allegiant Stadium. Utah Utes, Northwestern Wildcats. Utah, 7-point favorites, 41.5 the total in this game. Kyle Whittingham, pretty good bowl track record, pretty good bowl coach in his history. However, this is one year I'm thinking of bucking Kyle Whittingham in Utah, and I almost feel scummy doing so because Utah's just been such a good team for me over the years, and I respect the hell out of this program, this coach, everything they've done. But when the writing's on the wall, okay, with Utah going into this game. Bryson Barnes will play in the bowl game, but Nate Johnson, the other quarterback that was used quite a bit, he's in the transfer portal. They've got a couple receivers in the portal, 3 key players on defense in the portal. They also have a couple of key injuries on defense from earlier in the season. And now for the first time, Utah's always that underdog team we think of coming into bowl season. Now they're, the team that we know is the better team on paper in this matchup and expected to win. And think about where Utah's been. Utah's played in Rose Bowls, the last few seasons a couple of times. Now they're here in the Las Vegas Bowl. It's a lesser bowl game. It's from a motivation standpoint, I'm not sure it's there for Utah compared to years past. And when you look at Northwestern, you talk about a team that's going to be sky high for their bowl game. Northwestern will be. And David Braun deserves a ton of credit. Incredible coaching job. He inherited a mess, a disaster. And somehow this Northwestern team got themselves to 7-5, a winning record in a bowl game. Their defense is still a little shaky, but their offense can move the ball. They ran the ball well. Ben Bryant, solid at the quarterback position for Northwestern. No question about that. Cam Porter, Anthony Tyus were good running the ball. Bryce Kurtz, A.J. Henning, Cam Johnson at receiver. Northwestern deserves a ton of credit. And you look at Northwestern down the stretch as well. Absolutely terrific in the underdog bowl. And absolutely down the stretch as well going into this game here at the Las Vegas Bowl. So I like Northwestern here getting the points. And that's something looking at here in this bowl game. Conor, what do you think here? Las Vegas Bowl, Utah Northwestern.
Yeah, there's a few, both teams, Utah, that are out, opt out too. We have a couple of the DB Williams. They have a D lineman, right, for Northwestern that's in the portal. Utah's going to travel here. It's just down the road to Vegas. But, yeah, the full touchdown here. I think Northwestern could be in this game. Utah offense that we hadn't really loved all year long, scoring points. So I like the 7 here, Northwestern. I think they could be in this football game. And you mentioned Utah, especially the last 4 or 5 years, Rose Bowls, really big games, even longer than that with Whittingham. So a little bit down sleepy spots here. So I like Northwestern with the touchdown.
Yeah, I noticed that too, Jose, in the background. I was a little choppy there. Just to get it, if anyone, if I was cutting out there, Northwestern, I definitely agree with that move. I like Northwestern here in this game. And they were a team I circled right away. I want to be betting Northwestern as a dog in their bowl game because I know they're going to be into it. And they're going to be excited. And they're going to want to put a good performance on and try to win this game. So, Conor, just while I refresh here, take over the reins for a second. Shout out the chat.
Sorry, I was on mute. Shout out to all you guys in the chat here. Steve G, what's up, my guy? Rance, EQ. Shout out to all you guys. Bama Boy, Ian, another Ian. Al, Top Set, Truth Teller. What's up, my guy? Top Set. What's up, my man? Shout out to Josh Hillman becoming a member here. We be pubbing. We appreciate it. To all you guys. Real Deal, Prime, The Grinder, always up in here. Giving us the support. Shout out to you guys here. It's just
yeah, and look at that. Ramon Scott became a member as well. How nice.
Oh yeah, I got to hit that too. Ramon Scott becoming a member there at the top. So shout out to them.
All right, there we go. We're back and we're ready to roll along here on part one of our bowl previews here on Hitting the Books. This is the last game for Saturday, December 23rd. Next up here, Hawaii Bowl. I can't believe this game's not on Christmas Eve. I really can't. I'm so used to the Hawaii Bowl, your degenerate Christmas Eve special. You know, the people that don't spend Christmas with their families, they get to the television and they put a few $100 on the Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve night. Not this year, apparently. The game is on Saturday, December 23rd. There is no Christmas Eve bowl game this year. Coastal Carolina, San Jose State. We've got San Jose State 10-point favorites here. 53.5, 54 is the total. I mean, they're down to their third-string quarterback, Coastal, Ethan Vasco. And unfortunately, I had the horror of, I think, having a bet on Coastal Carolina in one of the games he started, and he was horrible. He was absolutely awful. But they're down to him because Grayson McCall's in the transfer portal. Jarrett Guest, the second quarterback, is in the transfer portal. Jared Brown, starting receiver, in the transfer portal. They've got a couple of defensive players in the portal as well. It's a who's who of, you know, missing players, key players for Coastal. And this team didn't play great down the stretch. And it kind of feels like for Coastal, this might just be, let's go to Honolulu, Hawaii for a vacation. You know, screw the bowl game, screw winning it. You know, we're here for a vacation. And that's sometimes how you have to handicap the Hawaii Bowl. You know, who's there to win? Who's there for a business trip to actually, you know, take care of business in the football game, or who's there for a vacation? I don't trust Coastal. I don't want Coastal in this game, even getting all these points. Do I want to lay 10 with San Jose State? I don't know, but I know I don't want Coastal. So default for me, it's San Jose State or nothing. And keep in mind, San Jose State down the stretch did play better, and they have a very experienced quarterback and one who knows Hawaii very well, played for Hawaii, Chevin Cordero. You know, you got to believe, you know, he's going to be excited and amped up to play back in Hawaii again. And now as a member of the San Jose State football team. So I don't want Coastal. I know that. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, Coastal, man, that horrible last game with the JMU was just awful. Talked about because there was a stretch I thought they played well during the year with the backups in, even Vasco, where they did. I've just been impressed. San Jose State to end the year, and the biggest thing is they ran it on teams in the Mountain West well, and I thought the defense got better and better. Both these teams, though, overall were good against the number. You know, 8-4. San Jose State 9-3. They're missing a couple stars. I think their wide receiver for San Jose, Nash. Do you have that, Savannah? They have a couple starters. They're going to be out.
Yeah, let me check on that. No, Nash is good to go, it looks like.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. I thought he was. Okay. I thought there was a couple here for San Jose State. So just look at that. 10 points, though. I don't know. You know, I think they win this game. I don't know if you want to lay the 9.5, though. Maybe look team total here for San Jose.
You know, honestly, because I don't know how much offense Coastal's bringing to the party. The problem is San Jose State can give up points, but I thought down the stretch they did play better defense outside of the UNLV game. I'd actually lean under in this game because I just don't know what the hell you're going to get from Coastal on offense. This offense looked horrible, awful, terrible with Ethan Vasco at quarterback down the stretch. All right, Quick Lane Bowl, Bowling Green and Minnesota. This game is on Tuesday, December 26th, otherwise known as Boxing Day here in Canada. But yeah, not that kind of boxing. Boxing is in box your Christmas presents that you just got. That's why they call it Boxing Day in Canada, December 26th. But nevertheless, we id Ford Field, Detroit, Bowling Green, and Minnesota. Minnesota 4-point favorites, 38 the total in this game. I'd probably lean on just by default to Bowling Green a little bit. You look at their situation. They've got a couple corners that are in the portal, running back as well. But when you look at Minnesota, is a team that was not very good this year. 5-7 somehow make a bowl game, barely by the skin of their teeth. I don't know how excited they're going to be. Cole Kramer is going to be at quarterback. Kaliak Manis is in the transfer portal for Minnesota. That's concerning. By the way, Darius Taylor, key running back for them, he's banged up, may not play. They're banged up on defense. A couple of starters may be missing as well, especially at linebacker. 2, in fact, may be out. Secondary's a little banged up as well. And say what you will about Bowling Green. Bazelak can throw the ball a bit. He can spin it, a little bit here for this Bowling Green team. An offense that I thought down the stretch, he played his best football down the stretch. Down the last 5 games of the MAC season, Connor Bazelak had 7 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. He played really good football down the stretch for them. So I think Bowling Green's excited to get to play a Big Ten school. Minnesota, a very sterile, and I know what that Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit at Ford Field where the Lions play is like. It's a sterile environment. It's, barely, I don't even think it's a quarter full for this game every single year. I can't imagine Minnesota's all that enthused, for this one. So for me, it would be Bowling Green or nothing. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to be up for this game at all. I look at this total. I still lean under, this 38.5. I don't know how it gets there. Bowling Green, 2 teams, one made you money and one didn't all year long. Minnesota laying points and they shouldn't. And even when they got their wins, it wasn't great. They lost 4 straight to end the year. In the end, can they win this game? Yeah. But I think you take the points and lean under, because I think you talked about Bazelak pretty good. I remember a couple years ago, Bowling Green beat Minnesota too in like a 14-10 game earlier in the year, 2 years ago. I think we get a boring one here, so I like the points and under.
You're absolutely right. 30.5-point dog in 2021, back September of 2020.
Early,
14-10 Bowling Green won outright as almost over a 4-touchdown underdog. They covered against Michigan, Bowling Green, earlier this year. They beat Georgia Tech as a huge underdog earlier this year, Bowling Green. Bowling Green is in these step-up spots against Power 5 teams. They covered against Michigan, and they beat Georgia Tech as like a 3-touchdown underdog this year. So we've got proof, evidence that Bowling Green can step up in class against Power 5 teams this year. And Minnesota is a weak Power 5 team. Simple as that. And an offense that we cannot trust laying points. So it's a good side, in my opinion, here, Bowling Green, here in the Quick Lane Bowl. All right, next up, we've got the First Responder Bowl, also Tuesday, December 26th in Dallas, Texas. I believe this is the home of SMU, this bowl game. Texas State and Rice. We've got Texas State 4.5-point favorites, 60.5 the total in this game. You look at the matchup here, TJ Finley and Texas State offensively, very good season, but where the hell did the defense go for Texas State late in the season? I mean, that defense kind of crumbled, as the season went along. But they do have a very good offense. There's no question. But look at these defensive numbers: 44, 77, 31 points allowed. Somehow Coastal scored 31. We talked about how bad the Coastal offense has been. Somehow Coastal Carolina ended up getting 31 points against them, and that was with Vasco. It was Vasco's only good game. It came against this Texas State defense. So I don't trust Texas State's defense right now. I think they could score, certainly, against a team like Rice, which isn't necessarily a great defensive team. You look at Rice, it looks like it's going to be A.J. Padgett, who is going to be the quarterback here for Rice. Keep in mind, he got into the games a lot down the stretch because, JT Daniels was banged up for Rice and JT Daniels, by the way, retired from football due to medical health reasons. So it's A.J. Padgett's team. He played down the street, played pretty well. He had 6 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions, above 60% completions. Now he gets the bowl practices, to get ready for this game against a Texas State defense that we know really had a bad time of it down the stretch. So I'd probably lean a little bit. I definitely like the over. I do. I like over 60 and a half. I just don't know if I can lay points with Texas State's defense the way they've played. I think they'll score. I think they are still the better team, Texas State, but don't trust their defense enough. I'd probably lean Rice slightly, but I prefer the total in this game over the number. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I think even with Padgett, it seems like Rice, I think, could get into the 30s, just how bad the Texas State defense was. And one thing with a bad defense, Bavano, over a field goal, you won't catch me laying points with them. This is one I wait motivation right before to see everything, who's in, who's out. But I'd be on Rice here. I just don't think there's too much separation. Both teams should be pumped, maybe in a bowl game. Texas State, 7-5, Rice 6-6. Two horrible teams the last few years. And Rice was pretty good against the number. A team I bet that I used to stay away from, Babano. I bet 4 or 5 times they were good to me, especially as a dog. So at 4.5, not only I lean them, I think there is points. I lean over as well.
All right, so there we go, leaning toward Rice here and over the total in this one. All right, next up, we've got the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. This one, also Tuesday, December 26th, Chase Field, Phoenix, Arizona, where the Diamondbacks play. They always set up that ballpark into a football stadium for this bowl game. Kansas and UNLV. Kansas 12.5-point favorites, 64.5 being the total here in this game. Definitely some things you want to keep in mind, and really more than anything for this game, Kansas, we know throughout the season, Jalen Daniels was banged up for them throughout the course of the season, and Jason Bean had to play quite a bit. That's definitely something you want to keep in mind. We assume Jason Bean is going to be the quarterback here for this bowl game for Kansas, but that hasn't been confirmed just yet. They are still waiting on Jalen Daniels to see there is potential he might be finally back from the back injury for this game, but not confirmed yet. We got to assume.
Oh yeah, come on, no way. I don't believe
that. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's Jason Bean here at quarterback. What's a little bit stunning here for UNLV is Mayava not in the mix here for UNLV here in this bowl game, and it's going to be more than likely Doug Brumfield, who was a starter initially for UNLV, that's going to be at quarterback. And I'll tell you what, I've seen enough of Doug Brumfield to know it's a downgrade. I don't know if it's a huge downgrade, but it's absolutely a downgrade with Jaden Mayava not playing in the bowl game here for UNLV, and Brumfield instead likely to be the starting quarterback here for UNLV. Keep in mind, too, the OC for Kansas, Andy Kotelnicki, he's gone to take that same position at Penn State. So little change in the coaching staff, but very.
Who's the guy they hired? Grimes?
Yeah, I believe that is, for Kansas as far as the offensive coordinator. Yes. So just a little shift in the coaching staff here for KU going into this game. Jeff Grimes taking over after 3 years at Baylor. So you're going to get pretty good balanced offense. He knows he's been an OC for a long time. I don't think it's going to change too much. They're still going to play at an above average pace. I mean, I could definitely see points in this game, but I got to admit, I'm a little more concerned for UNLV's offense in this game with Doug Brumfield at quarterback in this one. I mean, UNLV certainly excited to be in a bowl game. There's no doubt, but pretty big gap, I would think. And the way UNLV played on defense in those last couple games, hard for me to take them knowing what we saw. They got lit up by San Jose State in their final regular season, and then Boise just did a number on UNLV's defense in the Mountain West Championship game. And Kansas is probably better offensively than either of those teams. So maybe a Kansas team total over if I have to throw out a lean right now in this game. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, they are better, I think, than those. And the numbers show it. At times they didn't have to throw it a ton, but this team can run it. They average over 210 on the ground, and UNLV, as the year went on, the run defense, which I thought was pretty good. And it was against some of the competition, obviously, who they're playing. But it was pretty good, and they got wins. But I think Kansas can run all over them in this game. You mentioned maybe the team total. Mayava being gone was just a crushing kind of blow. Like, we finally get this kid's quarterback plays really, really well, and he's out of there. And I've seen enough of Brumfield. He's okay, but mistakes are around the corner for them. Tough for UNLV. I think they're happy to be there, but I think this is Kansas. I'd lay it or look to their team total here.
I would agree with that.
And UNLV was the darling ATS all year until the very end there.
And you would think enthused to be in a in a bowl game. That's not been a regular occurrence for UNLV over the last several years. But I mean, I just think personnel wise, they're a little outmatched here, outclassed a little bit. We'll see. But definitely didn't like what I saw in the last couple. They look like that team that ran out of gas a little bit. They've really poured everything into getting to the Mountain West Championship game. And but remember, they still lack depth. Barry Odom's going to eventually, I think, work to correct that, but they still lack quality depth, UNLV. And I think you're starting to see signs of that late in the season. Just look like a team that's running on fumes a little bit. All right, next up, we've got on Wednesday, December 27th, it's the Military Bowl, Virginia Tech and Tulane. It is Virginia Tech 8-point favorites, 46.5 being the total here in this game. We've seen some money come in on Virginia Tech. We know Willie Fritz is leaving the program, taking the Houston Cougars head coaching job. So Willie Fritz out of there, Slade Nagel, and the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, Shia Wood, the DL coach, Gerald Chapman. Basically, everybody is going with Fritz to Houston. But apparently, they'll all coach in the bowl game. So that's the bit of the surprise there, that all those coaches will be still coaching the bowl game here for Tulane. And of course, they hired the Troy head coach, a very good hire. And it sucks to lose Fritz. Fritz was so good for Tulane, resurrected a dormant program. But John Sumrall's a very good replacement. Did a good job at Troy. He comes over as the Tulane head coach. What's concerning here is Chris Brazel, who is by far the best receiver for Tulane. He's in the transfer portal. 3 starters on D, are in the portal. I'm hearing whispers that it's not even totally out of the possibility that Michael Pratt, the quarterback, might hit the transfer portal as well. So, yeah, that's why the betting markets have reacted here, and they're betting Virginia Tech in this game. I probably agree. I would lean under because, look, Tulane was more of a plotting offense, good defense team down the stretch. Didn't exactly light up the scoreboard. So I could see this game staying under. Kyron Drones, of course, at quarterback, really got things going for Virginia Tech. The reason they're in a bowl game is because he took over at quarterback from Grant Wells. They played much better football. They ended up going down the stretch 6-2 ATS in their last 8 games. I would imagine, after some lean years for Virginia Tech Hokies football, they're enthused about being back in a bowl season game. So, I definitely think motivation-wise and the way the situationals line up, it definitely is big advantage Virginia Tech. The question now is, do you want to lay this many points? I'm not so sure, but I would still lean to Tech a little bit. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I get the move, but we got to see, maybe this is already hinting that Pratt doesn't go in this game. But what I thought was, and how many defensive players, you already talked about the few for Tulane, but that's what they were good on all year, was their defense. Kind of the offense sputtered at times, and that's what I looked at the last few days was I'd be on the under. Tulane that came through the SMU game. They kind of pulled away there late. That was disappointing for Tulane in the championship game. So yeah, not a lot of motivation for Tulane after last year. The darlings, Bavano, and they beat SC, have the crazy years. Kind of seems just like we're here. But if Pratt's in and you get over a touchdown, how can you not maybe look Tulane? So it's a wait. It's a wait and see. But this line's kind of telling.
All right, next up, we've got on Wednesday, December 27, Bank of America Bowl, Bank of America Stadium, Charlotte, North Carolina. Here it is. It's the bowl game we joked all season long. Maybe Clemson would be in this game, but it's North Carolina out of the ACC that's in this game. The Mayo Bowl.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough. Yeah, North Carolina.
Mayo Bowl. The winning team is going to get their coach going to get plastered in mayonnaise, which has been the tradition of this one, the Mayo Bowl. North Carolina, West Virginia. We've got West Virginia 3.5-point favorites, 56.5 the total. I don't know if I would have been betting Clemson in the Mayo Bowl if they were in it. And I'm not sure I'm betting the ACC team North Carolina in this bowl game either. They did not play well down the stretch, North Carolina. Bad finish to the season. What did they go? 2-4 straight up, 1-5 against the spread. And one of those wins was against Campbell, FCS opponent. Their only win against an FBS team was Duke by 2 points by the skin of their teeth in the Liberty Bell rivalry game with Loftus at quarterback. Riley Leonard didn't even play in that game for Duke, and they still gave up 45 points. They gave up 46 to Georgia Tech in a loss. They give up 31 to Virginia in a really bad loss. They get 31-20 loss at Clemson, and then a 39-20 spanking against NC State in the rivalry game at the end of the season. So this defense has collapsed. They've been awful. They haven't stopped anybody. And there's a chance, not confirmed, but there is a chance that Drake May doesn't play and he opts out for North Carolina. I'm already on West Virginia. I just think there's a huge gap in motivation. North Carolina, they played the last couple of games like they've not quit. I'll say it, maybe a little bit, that they've packed it in a little bit on the season with the way they've played the last couple of games. West Virginia, it was a great finish to the season. They played well. Neil Brown, I think, maybe saved his job getting his team to 8-4 this season for West Virginia. No question about that. They played great football. Garrett Green established himself as a pretty damn good quarterback. This offense, Jaheim White, C.J. Donaldson at running back, Devin Carter leading them at receiver. Very tough to stop. You think this Civ defense of North Carolina is stopping this team? I'm not so sure about that. So I'm definitely liking West Virginia here, laying the short number. Probably lean over as well because both of these teams kind of trended over late in the season. I'll really like the over if May plays. If May doesn't play, we could be looking at the backup quarterback here for North Carolina, Conor Harrell, get the start. And I don't know how good the offense will be with him, but I still think they could move it a little bit. West Virginia, not a great defensive team. So for me, it'll be West Virginia and or the over in this game. C-Mac, what do you think here, Mayo Bowl?
Yeah, it's two defenses that kind of just got worse, I thought, as the year went on, especially North Carolina. I think you look at just West Virginia in this one, maybe their team total. I think the full game gets over. But that's with May in or not. Obviously, him being in is a lot better. But I still think with the backup here you're talking about could still score points. So I'm looking at this over here.
All right. Next up, it is also Wednesday, December 27, the Holiday Bowl. This is one of the more traditional, historic bowl games of pre-New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. The Holiday Bowl, Petco Park, San Diego, Louisville, and USC. Louisville, 7.5-point favorites, 57.5 the total here in this one. We know Caleb Williams is out. We expected that he wasn't going to play in this bowl game. That means Miller Moss is going to be the starting quarterback in all likelihood here for the Trojans in this game. Miller Moss obviously hasn't gotten into much action this year. A lot of it early in the season. Actually, the numbers were good. 5 for 7 against San Jose State, 7 for 10 against Nevada, garbage time. 11 for 15 against Stanford, again, garbage time. 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He's been good, actually, the few times we have seen him here at quarterback for USC. Question is going to be, how do they fare here? I think because he got into those 3 games, Conor, and he looked all right, he can probably play okay, especially with the bowl practices. He knows he's gonna play in this game. They've still got a lot of talent on offense. We know that. They have very little on defense, USC. But on offense, we know they're capable. So I'm trying to make a case for the over here in this game, thinking that USC's offense, even without Caleb Williams at quarterback, assuming that Marshawn Lloyd is still playing, and it looks like as of now he hasn't opted out for USC. That it looks like a lot of their receivers, Taj Washington, Dorian Singer, Zachariah Branch. I mean, I'm seeing as of right now, those guys are playing. They have not opted out for this game. And until I see otherwise, I'm going to assume that they're going to play here for USC in this game. So we'll see. Marshawn Lloyd, actually, they say he might play. So keep in mind, he's showing up in the opt-out list, Marshawn Lloyd, but he's let it be known he still might decide to play. So he is not a for sure ruled out of the equation yet for USC. Louisville should move the football. Now, I know Plummer and the Louisville offense was dreadful against Florida State in the ACC championship game, but Jeff Brom teams, go back to Purdue, go back to Western Kentucky. He's a good bowl coach. He's done well in bowl games. The offense has done well in bowl games with Jeff Brom as the coach. He'll get that offense back on track here, in my opinion, especially against a really bad USC defense. So I could only lean Louisville. Do I love it above a touchdown? No, but I don't want USC. Louisville or nothing. I like the over. I'm probably going to play the over, assuming USC doesn't lose everybody on offense. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I think both teams are just going to be a slew of players, and we're going to hear more and more of it. And next week will be even better with some of our later games that we'll hear this stuff, because Brahms even said he thinks a bunch of guys are going to opt out in this game. Louisville a little disappointing, after the loss, kind of ended the year shitty with back-to-back losses. We're kind of riding high there until the loss to Kentucky and Florida State. How motivated Southern California? I don't know. Their defense is still bad. Like, I just think Louisville, who's ever in, is going to score on them. So maybe look to their team total in this one if you're leery about laying the touchdown. And SC should be able to score. This Louisville defense, I thought, was pretty good at times. But even with whoever will be in for SC, the whole offense, really, I think they could be able to score some points.
I do want to point out, too, for Louisville, they do have 4 players have confirmed entering the transfer portal. And 2 of them are big-time players on defense. Cameron Wilson, the edge rusher, Josh Minkins, the safety, and played a lot of snaps this year for Louisville. So that hurts the defense. So makes me like the over more. And like I say, Miller Moss just has to come in there and be efficient, be sound, let the playmakers do their thing, rely on them because they got a great skill position group. And again, he got into 3 games and he looked solid in this brief action we saw from Miller Moss early in the season. So, like I say, the over, I am interested in that here with the Holiday Bowl in this game.
2 offensive players you talked about. I think Thrash and Jordan, the running back, might not play.
Yeah,
for Louisville in this game.
For Louisville, yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. We'll see if they are. Yes, Jawar Jordan, the running back, Jamari Thrash, the receiver. Make sure you keep an eye on whether those guys are able to play in this game. All right, this is the final game next up now of part 1 of our bowl previews here on this edition of Hitting the Books. Wednesday, December 27th, Texas Bowl, NRG Stadium in Houston. Texas A&M, Oklahoma State. A&M 3-point favorites, 53 and a half the total here in this game. There's a lot to dissect here in this one. First of all, for A&M. You look at the situation for them. There's a lot of moving parts. Jimbo Fisher, of course, let go late in the season. Wegman out for the season with injury. And Max Johnson for A&M hitting the transfer portal as well to North Carolina. Max Johnson on his way there. And they've got a bunch of opt-outs here. Bobby Petrino, is now the OC at Arkansas with Jimbo Fisher fired. It looks like Colin Klein will replace Bobby Petrino as the OC here for A&M. Elijah Robertson is going to be the interim coach for the bowl game. And he was just recently hired at Syracuse as the DC. So it's one of those situations. Are you preparing, if you're Elijah Robertson, to A&M for their bowl game? Or are you thinking about your new job now, Syracuse? You're probably thinking about your new job at Syracuse. So, again, this is just not a fluid, cohesive coaching situation right now for A&M at all. Going into this bowl game here against Oklahoma State. And they've got a bunch of opt-outs, including a couple of players in the secondary, pass rusher, multiple players in the secondary opting out for A&M. And there could be more because I'm hearing that there's about 5 that are on the we might opt-out list, including 3 on defense. So that's concerning here for Oklahoma State. Meanwhile, you look at Oklahoma State, and they've got 1 guy in the transfer portal, Blaine Green, at receiver. And other than that, everybody's here. Everybody's present for this bowl game. Look, Oklahoma State didn't play great down the stretch. They kind of peaked midway through the season. Then they ran out of gas late. They lost to UCF. They did beat BYU, but barely, unimpressive. And then they got blown out by Texas in the Big 12 championship. But Gundy's good in bowl games. Gundy's good in the underdog role. And this A&M situation's all over the map. And it looks like Jalen Henderson is going to have to be their starting quarterback here for A&M in this game, with Max Johnson transferred out. And, of course, Wegman, obviously injured long ago and out for the season. We'll see how he fares here. He didn't play that bad, actually. 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. We know Oklahoma State's defense hit or miss. I still like Oklahoma State. I think from a side perspective, they're in the more fluid situation, maybe a little more enthusiasm for the bowl game here than a A&M team that kind of flatlined, in the second half of the season at times. Oklahoma State for me +3. And I think this game could get over the total. Now, the concern is Jalen Henderson. How effective can he be? Well, he was pretty solid down the stretch. I think Oklahoma State, with all the opt-outs for A&M, and a lot of them are on defense, Oklahoma State's going to be able to move the ball with Alan Bowman and company at quarterback for them as well. So for me, it would be Okie State and the over in this game. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, the last few days I looked at was this total. I know watching that horrible the defense was against Texas, but it kind of was that, especially after the Oklahoma game. We talked about it before that game, but man, like they got some turnovers, and obviously it was bedlam, huge game, they win it, but the defense just went to shambles, and it looked horrible against Texas. They didn't stop them at all on third down, fourth down, not fucking one time, the whole game. I liked what Henderson did watching that game against LSU. I thought he was pretty good. He had a pick. And I think he'll be able to move the ball here in this one. I think this could get over too. This is one to wait a little bit. Who's in? You talked about all the players going to be out on defense for A&M. And yeah, I think you take the points. You should take Oklahoma State, maybe money line here. With Gundy as a dog here in bowl season, I wouldn't want to lay points with A&M right now.
No doubt.
With all the coaching they got going on, yeah.
Unstable. Coaches in, coaches out. Coach that's already been hired at Syracuse as a DC is now the interim coach for this bowl game. So I don't think he's that interested, honestly. Like I said, his focus now is my next job, my next opportunity, where I've been hired, not necessarily where I'm on my way out. So like it's situationally. Now, we know Oklahoma State's not as talented as A&M in terms of the recruits and the athletes on the field, but I think in this spot, Gundy coaches them up. Fluid situation for Oklahoma State, much more fluid than A&M. Getting the points with them's worth a look. And I also think, like you said, C-Mac, we can see more points in that game than this total currently indicates. All right, great stuff. That is part one of our bowl previews here on Hitting the Book. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button on the way out if you haven't done so already. C-Mac, we're back next Monday. It's going to be our final 2023 edition of Hitting the Books, part two of our bowl previews, including the two semifinals. Which we'll preview next Monday, Washington, Texas, Michigan, Alabama, the two playoff semifinals. So we'll talk about all those and the remaining bowl games next Monday. Final words, Conor, Mac, before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I can't wait for next week. And even with all these, every day, more info on all these freaking games. So it every year it just keeps going and going. And yeah, second half, which I can't wait. Bunch of great games, bowl games to look forward to. Shout out to Ramon Scott, my man. He is in the green. Appreciate it, my dude. He's a member. Cab, what's up, my dude? Big O, Mike, Tommy, James, Steve G, everyone here. Bama Boy, EQ, Al, Ian. Appreciate you guys. Hit the like button. That's all we ask. Hit the like button. Hit the thumbs down, whatever. Just do one of them. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone in the chat, like you said, including especially Dabby Cab and Ramon Scott, two of our great on-air people here at Pub Sports Radio. Great stuff. Appreciate everyone joining us. That's a wrap. Bowl preview part one in the books, and we are back next Monday. Back to our normal time, by the way, next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific next Monday with part two of our bowl preview shows right here for Hitting the Books on Pub Sports Radio. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy the first half of the bowl season, and we'll be back next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, for part two of our college football bowl previews right here on Hitting the Books on Pub Sports Radio. Until then, class dismissed.